What the Tech is brought to you by Glasswire. With Glasswire, you can see your current and past network activities, detect malware, and also detect bad behaving apps on Windows and Android. Use the code CYBER and get 50% off for a limited time. Glasswire.com.
What the Tech?
Whoa, hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. We're back after a hellacious couple weeks of personal issues and fires and more fires and work.
I don't know why I'm laughing at this, but yeah.
I mean, you know what?
Sorry.
You gotta laugh. If you don't laugh, you're crying, right? If I don't laugh, I'm gonna cry about this. So we gotta laugh. Yeah, it's been a crazy couple weeks. Many people know, living here on the East Coast, New York City's opening up again. Indoor dining came back, and I had to get the properties that I'm in charge of open. And well, the one that we had planned on opening is fine, right? The one that's been open, that's been fine.
Yeah,
that one's functioned. But we were just having a conversation opening our second and third and fourth locations up, and somebody decided to light our second location on fire last week.
Yeah.
We also found out that it had become a homeless encampment. And they had figured out how to get in to the building where the alarm wouldn't pick them up, I guess. So they were living in the venue for a little bit. And then just a couple days ago, there was another fire next door to my other restaurant. So, oh boy, it's been something. But we're here. A lot going on, obviously. I have a lot to talk to Paul about. I think it's an interesting time, especially for technology. And the more, we've been doing a show, and really the story of the last year, and by the way, we're a year in on this, is how, and listen, obviously there's so many big stories, everything that's happened in the world, right? But if we're talking about technology, which we are here, the big story here is the change in habits of how we use the technology that we use. And really, I mean, I was talking to one of my buddies. He works at a competitor of yours, Paul.
I have a competitor?
You do. Yeah. Many of sort. And he was saying that, he goes, we're going to, next 10 years, the story of this decade, we got the story of the 2010s, and it was obviously the iPad was the thing that kind of catapulted how technology changed, Surface devices, multi-use devices, tablet, convertibles. That was a big story. But this year will be the change in computing and how, this catapulted us. This accelerated the mobile-first mentality. Even though it was there, this has really been the driving force behind it.
I feel like, as you were talking, it kind of occurred to me. I often frame this like, when I got into the business, Microsoft was personal computing, right? So mid-1990s. When you talked about personal computing, it was literally PCs. It was Microsoft. That was the whole story. That's where it ended, Yeah. And obviously, antitrust trial happens, mobile web, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, But the thing you just sort of, not reminded me of, but just triggered into my brain, because I never really thought of this before, was each of those companies kind of established their own little platform, or their platforms. Like they became what Microsoft had been, but not any one of them dominated the whole industry. And I would say until fairly recently, in most cases, I mean, it's probably not universal, but they worked, like Microsoft did. They were kind of insular. It was, if you go into the Apple ecosystem, you're in the Apple ecosystem. That's what you're doing. If you go into Google, that's what you're doing. And I think what you just kind of triggered in my brain was that lately, and possibly because of antitrust action, or at least the threat of it and other lawsuits, it's starting to open up. And this is the true heterogeneous computing thing. And my God, we could talk about this for hours, because you can see it in everything from streaming services to social media services to productivity services. It goes on and on and on. Like, you can mix and match now, and it's going to get better and better as we go forward. Yeah,
it's they all connect together, right? This is all stuff that kind of works together. One interesting aspect is, you brought it up, and this is a main topic, is integration. And integration will play a huge part, no matter what device you have, what kind of operating system you're running. These applications that are in the top 20, let's say, have to function on all these services, like everywhere.
That's the point. Like, you don't have to go to Apple to get one thing. I mean, actually, technically, of course, you do, but everything over time. It's not universal yet. We're still baby stepping our way into this, but services that used to be specific to only a single platform are now opening up. Yeah. To other platforms, and it makes it so much better for people, for the users.
Yeah, listen, it's competitive. It creates. It doesn't gatekeep. And I've been using that term for this because it is gatekeeping of the services. But Apple has not been very on the forefront of this. They have not been very welcoming because if you really think about it, right,
at all,
two of the most used services in the world are FaceTime and Messages, and the Apple messaging platform. Yeah. And Messages, for a long time, we had heard that internally they were working on a beta for Android and Windows. This was the plan. There was a concept, and I thought this really would happen last year, that you take Messages and you put it on all the other platforms, and what you do on those platforms is that you come up with a way to monetize it as a service. And the way you do that is with the GIFs and the emojis and the this and the that. And you can say, like, listen, $4.99 a month, it comes in your Apple bundle. You get access to these type of, features on Messages. I thought they would do that. I also thought, honestly, that FaceTime would have come on Windows.
By the way, I still feel like those things could still happen, right? I still think those things arguably will happen.
Oh, it's going to happen. But FaceTime should have happened in 2020.
I know for sure. And Apple didn't really have a services play in place to do the iMessage thing that you were just talking about. But that's an excellent idea. And they would probably rope in, millions of Android users with a $4.99 a month mini Apple bundle that included iMessage compatibility on Android and maybe some iCloud storage,
music or whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah. Yep.
I mean, it's, to me, that was a very simple solution for them. But you have seen this happen where you now have Apple TV accessible on Google TV and on a Fire TV and all these services.
That was the one for me, by the way. I'm sorry to interrupt, but when you introduced this, the other thing I was thinking was I had gotten the Chromecast with Google TV whenever that came out, whenever that was, September, October, whatever. And I loved it, and to me, it takes all the best of the UX from like the Amazon Fire TV, but they do a really good job of aggregating content from the services that will allow it. So they brings it up to the front and really nice UI, but I couldn't switch to it because I actually do rely on Apple TV, the service, right? Because I buy, a lot of content through there, and they have their own, obviously, original content, whatever. But once they brought that thing happening, I haven't written about this yet, but Apple bringing Apple TV Plus, the app, to Google TV is what enabled me to switch to that, and I can't wait till it's on Android, because then I can go to the gym and watch the movies I purchased on my phone, because I don't use an iPhone.
The other thing that kind of ties into this is how people are starting to learn how habits have changed. Did you see that Google TV is looking to add a simple mode?
Yeah.
To Google TV, and this is something I've said for a long time. Like, my father, he's old, he's 68 years old. This is a very difficult thing for him to figure out. I got to go to Netflix like this. I got input. Well, inputs, right? Inputs are difficult, and also the apps, navigating the apps, finding things on an app. Sometimes the app logs you out. It's a difficult thing for. I got to constantly, like, he wants to watch Deadpool. I had to find Deadpool for him, put it on. I had to install Hulu because I realized it's on Hulu. He watched it on there, but he's learning.
Well, this is the holy grail too. So for TV, Apple has tried to do this with Apple TV, the app and the device, right? And then Google is now trying to do this with Google TV, which is you have all these apps that are backed by services, and you want to find Deadpool. You're like, I know it's out there somewhere. I don't want to go into each app and search. I want to search, and Roku will do that. But, you want like one interface to everything. And this is the Windows Phone problem, right? Microsoft tried to do this with apps on Windows Phone back in 2012 or whatever year that was, 2010. Whatever that was, a long time ago. And you know, it was the content creators that kind of put the kibosh on that. And you know, I see that. I don't know if I think you use the Chromecast with Google TV as well.
Yeah.
But if not, I mean, you certainly have used it. But you know that, like, if I go into Netflix and watch a show and I don't complete it, or a movie or whatever, it lands on the front page under continue watching. So they're on board with that. Netflix is like, yeah, we'll do that. But if I watch a show or a movie on Hulu, those don't come out to the front page, because Hulu's like, yeah, we'll be on your device, but we're not going to integrate with your thing. We want people to use
fascinating.
the app.
Fascinating.
It's still that kind of weird gray area that, like, some stuff is great, some stuff is just not available, and some stuff is like Hulu, where they're like, well, we'll meet you halfway.
So, you know, something that, I mean, nearly anybody over the age of, I guess, 60, right, that I've spoken to about this, because I become, you know, I'm the guy that fixes everybody's TV in the family. Sure. Everybody has a problem. They just yeah. When you hit 60, Paul, you got a couple of years.
Yeah, I'll be shaking on the cane, Andrew.
Yeah. I mean, they just do this. They're like, fix it, you know. Yeah. But something I've always heard from them is that the concept of going to a Netflix app and and looking and searching to find something, it is something that is foreign to a lot of TV viewers, because generally, you know what you would do? You would just channel surf. It's playing already. You know,
that,
like, how do I know I'm going to like this TV show or movie? Generally, the way you do it is by you click, you know, you click up on your remote and you find something, it catches your eye, you watch it for about 30 seconds and say, I'm invested in this now or not. And that is an aspect of viewing that's gone when it comes to media consumption.
It is. It's actually, so I'm not using a live TV service, but I will say one of the trickier things with whatever service you choose, and it really is partly the device's fault too. So however you choose to watch that service on, you know, an Apple TV device or a Google device or whatever it is, smart TV, you don't, the other thing you miss is that ability, you know, we've all done this. Like, I grew up doing this. I've done this my whole life until now. I can't do it anymore. You switch back and forth between two things. Maybe it's a Sunday afternoon and there's a football game on, but there's a basketball game on the other channel and you want to, you know, go back and forth. Very difficult or impossible, depending on what you're using, to do that.
Oh my! But I do it every Wednesday, Paul, for wrestling. There's two different wrestling shows on at the same time. One's on USA, one's on USA, one's on TNT. So if I'm watching on YouTube TV, really easy, right? Because I could just it's still a pain in the ass, because you gotta rely on their algorithm. So it knows what I do on a Wednesday night. So it'll always have it. If I hit the down arrow, the first channel that pops up, the recommendation, is what I'm watching. However, if you're watching via the USA app or the NBC app or USA app, or you're watching via the Turner app, you're stuck. You're in an app. You're not exiting an app to re-enter another app, reloading everything. It just
the makers of those apps do not want to provide you with a way to do what you're doing.
Nor do they want you to do that. But if you've noticed, like Peacock, for example, right? NBC, the Peacock app allows you. Or the NBC app, I should say, right? Because I haven't really played with the Peacock app as much, but the NBC app, which is pretty much the same thing, it gives you like a live channel guide of what's on all their properties. So you have like a mini cable network within the app. So if it's NBC,
but it's
only NBC properties. Like so you got USA, NBC, you got Bravo, or whatever the other properties are. CBS does the same thing also, and Disney now, you know, has everything. But I like that approach, because you're still kind of like, it's not as foreign to you because you could channel surf, but
well, does it have to be like, so I was just wondering, you know, was it your dad you were saying wants to up channel or whatever? You know, I wonder, sometimes I think there's an opportunity when you go from like an old way of doing things to a new way, whatever it is, if you're going from physical media to services or whatever. You know, it doesn't always have to be exactly the same as it was before. You know, like an ebook by definition can be better than a real book, even though people always complain like, oh, you know, I used to smell the book, or I'd like the feel of it in my hand, whatever, you know, whatever. But there are huge advantages to ebooks, and they don't have to be a digital representation of the physical thing. I mean, maybe that's the first step just to get people used to it. But over time, hopefully what you discover is there's a better way of doing things than what I used to on this old thing. But the thing you're describing with channel surfing, it's just, it's possible. I mean, it is possible. Like,
there's a middle ground here. There is a middle ground that we haven't discovered yet. And I listen, this goes for content discoverability as a whole, especially with YouTube,
Yeah.
I feel honestly, I feel like we had figured it out about 5-6 years ago, and some study came out as far as how to present discoverability, and everybody reverted, and that's the direction they went because they thought that this is the better way to do it. But years ago, you used to, like, for podcasts, right? If I'm into Windows Weekly, and I'm not really seeking other podcasts, but I would be up for listening to a similar style podcast. What are the odds that somebody finds us, right? Like I'm without seeking us out.
That's going to depend really heavily on what you're using. That's the point.
The algorithm of the app, yeah.
Well, if they even offer that, like, in other words, like a show, you might like this because you watched this. You might like this. And, I don't know if you use what is it? I think it's Spotify. Actually, I don't know if YouTube Music does this or not, but I think on Spotify, if let's say you made a playlist and you're like, look, this is the music I want to listen to tonight. It's 25 songs. It's a hand-picked, curated list,
Andrew's Romance Pack, 1980s Romance Pack. It's just round and round by Rat on repeat. That's all the playlist is.
Right. With the Milton Berle video playing in the background. Milton Berle financed that video. Anyway, the point is, what is the point? Oh, I think it's Spotify, where if the playlist finishes, and if you let it, maybe it's an option you configure, it will just, it has selected music for you that is like the music that was in the thing you were just listening to. And like that kind of thing, that can be, it can be useful. And it applies to this podcast example you were using, where depending on the client, depending on the app you're using, I wouldn't want that personally, but I suppose it's possible I don't know how people listen to podcasts, but for really, if you're in a car or something, you finish an episode of, Windows Weekly, and an episode of this show comes on right after it, because it's like, well, you like this thing, you've been listening to it. You'll probably like this other thing, maybe.
That's the hope, right? And that's what a couple companies have tried to do, but it's still very difficult. Also, I really believe that there's still something to be said about first run live programming, right? We're very much in the on-demand phase right now, where everything is about on-demand content.
Yeah.
But I like the ability to be forced to listen to something sometime. But maybe, you know what?
It depends on what it is.
But let me ask you, Paul. Let me ask you this: do you think? And we've spoken about this numerous times over the last 10 years about how I hate, like, Reddit subgroups, right? Like Reddit guessing what I'm into. I absolutely hate because then
this can be done
it's very
poorly.
closed. It's very closed, and I don't get access to anything else. Do you think that's the problem, where people are just not up for, like, I'm all for learning content, like stuff that's not even for me. Like if I'm, let's just throwing it out there, if I'm listening to a left-leaning show, right? And now I'm being recommended, and after that is a right-leaning show, but I still want to hear both. You know what I mean? Like, for me,
dude, you're alone in that one.
I think I am. I think I am
most
alone.
No, I mean, and I'm not trying to be funny. I mean, most people, unfortunately, are feeding into this system where you go down a tunnel, and I'm not talking politics. I mean, in anything, any interest, whatever it is, But you can see where this works, and you can see where it doesn't work. And I'm not going to be able to pull a real example out of my behind here, but we've all done this thing where you watch or listen or whatever it is you watch, enjoy some content. And then you get to some interface at the end, and it says, like Netflix would do. So the movie is, the credits playing, and 3 boxes pop up, and it's people who watch this also like one of these, or you might like this. And sometimes those choices are like, okay, I understand. It's in the same ballpark. Sometimes it's so out to lunch.
Yeah, it's
like I'd have to make something up. I'm not going to bother trying, but it's like a science fiction movie. Maybe you would like this light romance. What? Like what exactly? What's the algorithm here? And it might literally be as dumb as some connection between, like, 37% of the people who watch the science fiction thing also watch this, so maybe you'll like it too. It might literally be that stupid. Google, I don't know if you've been using the Chromecast lately, but it actually wants you to spend a couple of minutes and just tell me if you like these movies. And you're like, yes, no, yes, and it tries to build lists of picks for you based on your preferences, based on what you just voted on. But that's the rabbit hole right there, And you might be missing out. Maybe there's some French comedy or something, that even though all I've been doing is watching James Bond movies or whatever, maybe I want to watch this thing that's completely different next. And those things will never be surfaced for you because you just told them you only like action movies.
Brad in our chat room wrote, you love sci-fi? Try this story. Give this love story a shot.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
You know what though? YouTube is really good with their algorithm. I got to tell you that theirs works because it's able to really, but it collects so much. It knows so much about me. Like TikTok, for example. The TikTok app knows way too much about me, to the point that it's like, wow, this is really it really knows who I am.
It's
get
almost invasive,
Like I don't get to see it. Well, here's a negative, right? Like I don't get to see, let's say TikTok, for example, because I absolutely loved it. I use it every night. That's what I do. I just scroll on TikTok in bed. Yeah. And I just see what people are writing.
You anymore.
I'm a 16-year-old boy on the inside.
Yep.
But
you in like a car-shaped bed with a teddy bear.
Yeah. I get now is like car videos. I get like fun conspiracy videos, not like Hillary. Like I get like not
fun
like
conspiracy. I like conspiracy,
stuff.
But I want it to be on the fun. I don't want it to be dangerous. I want it to be fun.
Yeah. I don't like dangerous conspiracies.
What is a fun? Give me an example of a fun
conspiracy. Mole people.
Mole people.
Yeah, like center of the earth people. Like that's a fun conspiracy.
Like ridiculous.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's fun. You could have a nice, lighthearted conversation about the video that you saw, or like I really love the simulation conspiracy videos. People are really into this concept that we're living in a simulation now.
Oh yeah.
Like that's fascinating to me. I got like yesterday. It was all about Stargates. That's all the conspiracy videos I saw. However,
Stargate is a documentary.
No. Not like the TV show. Stargate, as in a portal to another dimension.
Yeah, well, that's what the Stargate is.
That the ancients had. Yeah. That the ancients were in possession of, history. Obviously.
It's not
it's under the Sphinx. Everybody knows
Star Trek ripoff. It's a documentary.
But
yeah, okay.
So like that's okay. Like it knows that I like that stuff. Even though, listen, I don't believe it, but it's fun. It's sci-fi, right? However, it also knows if I screwed my algorithm up because I'm traveling now and I'm on the train and I'm doing it on the train. So now it's doing based on my geolocation at that moment. So honestly, my entire TikTok and I'm making say this as a joke. I have entered Hasidic Jewish TikTok because the train station that I'm at that I'm sitting in
is in that part of New York.
That part of New York.
Yeah.
So that's all I get, or I enter like Dominicans from Brooklyn TikTok, like it's so bizarre, like how it knows. It knows I'm a New Yorker.
Yeah, this is one of the big problems because you could you go in Google and search for something. You could go to Amazon and search for some product, and it's for a gift. It's for someone else. It's whatever. And your next week's going to be a little tough because this is all you're going to you're going to get recommended this stuff like
forever.
Yeah. Well,
and then now you got to reteach it, right? Now you got to teach it.
Right.
So let's say
there should be a way to go in and say, don't listen to what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
I just thought of this the other day on YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube as well. And it occurred to me like sometimes I literally will right click on a video and say open in an incognito window because I don't want it to think that I want more of this.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I have the big problem with the kids now because my entire YouTube thing is Peppa Pig and like kids shows, Addie and Jillian, Peppa Pig, Ryan's toy review. That's all it is. So now I got to make. I set up the Google TV in their playroom, so I set it up for them. With parental locks and stuff like that.
Sure.
But it's interesting. I mean, really, it's a positive and a negative at the same time. That it gets to know what you like, but again, you're kind of behind a wall here. That I know we went down this rabbit hole because we were talking about integration of applications and stuff like that, but it is an interesting conversation to have.
Well, no, but the integration will lead to the rabbit hole. I mean, it's definitely a benefit. I mean, it just opens up things so wonderfully. It's what I've always wanted. Why can't this work here? Why can't this work here? But now that you have everything you want in one place and whatever that place is that you like, and now it's, learning all your habits. I mean, it just gives you, it's ultimately you're going to run into this, the same problem you get on any digital platform, which is the rabbit hole effect.
I want to continue this, but before we do, I want to thank our great sponsor. It's Glasswire. If you're having network issues, here's the great thing. You can instantly reveal bandwidth hogs, malware, privacy-violating apps, and then block them. So it's funny because I used this as an example a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Glasswire about, everything is connected to the internet now, right? Everything is going through your network. But sometimes some of these devices, you're hoping that your iPhone is not going to screw up and become a bandwidth hog, or you're hoping that your smart lights or your smart light switch isn't going to affect the network. Well, one of my friends, he had a big problem because there was a big issue with his internet where it was rebooting his router constantly. Okay, wow. Constantly his router was rebooting. Couldn't figure it out. Replaced the router. Had another one. Same exact thing after a couple months. He found out that he has one of the cheaper smart lights, like the color changing lights. He had one of those that was screwing up the network. It was something was happening where it was restarting the router over and over again. Wow. He found out because he was using Glasswire, and he saw I guess an abnormality in the bandwidth that he was looking at, and he figured out that this smart light from 4 years ago is affecting his entire house's connection. So, I mean, it's really fascinating, and this is a great application. I highly suggest you check it out. Glasswire.com. I have it on 4 different computers at this point, so I personally use it all the time, and I really recommend you guys check them out. Glasswire.com. Let's talk about the new icons in Windows, Paul. People are really excited about these new icons.
Oh, brother. All right. Well, I mean, first of all, those icons are appearing in what we call the dev channel of the Windows Insider program, which means they're not destined for any particular version of Windows, at least not that we know of. That means they could appear in not 21H1 because that's already done, but in 21H2, it could be later than that. It could be never, so we don't know. But we do know that for 21H2, which is that release coming in the second half of this year, it's supposed to be a major release. It's supposed to have a big UX overhaul, codenamed Sun Valley. We'll see. But I think the icons are probably going to be part of that. I think they're part of that set of updates that are coming. And they're consistent with the updates that we see today in Windows 10, if you're familiar with any of the modern apps or the modern UIs. So not like File Explorer, like that's an old-fashioned UI, but any of the modern stuff. And I for whatever it's worth, I was telling Brad this morning, like I like the Windows 10 look and feel, by which I mean these modern elements, the typography, the iconography. And these icons are consistent with the types of icons you would see in, Microsoft Edge or, any of the Microsoft apps, Mail, Calendar, whatever. It's nice.
Yeah. Also, let's talk about Office 2021.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the vast majority of people, like individuals, obviously going with a Microsoft 365 subscription is probably the prudent path. But Microsoft will keep selling, new versions of standalone Office. The next one is coming in the second half of this year. It will probably have the same SKUs. They did say they're not raising the prices. SKUs meaning like product editions, like Home and Student or whatever those things, whatever the names are now. And they're super restrictive, right? You can only install them on one PC. They're never going to get new features, and that's one of the benefits, or at least one of the side effects of the Microsoft 365 subscription is they actually update these apps every month. So it doesn't mean you're going to wake up one day and it's going to be a brand new UI necessarily, but I suppose that could happen. But they're adding features to Word, to PowerPoint, to Excel, whatever, every month. And if you buy Office 2019 today or 2021 later this year, you don't get that. You get whatever that frozen slice of time thing was at the time they made it, and it's only for one computer, right? You can't install it on multiple computers, so they'll keep doing that.
It's interesting. I mean, right now where they're headed with that, but let's talk about Ignite really quickly. Because we're doing a quicker show. What did we learn this year?
So the Ignite that just happened this past week, and it was really just a couple of days. It was Tuesday and Wednesday. I think that was the whole thing. Is the second half of the Ignite event that they had back in Actually, when was it? October, November, somewhere in around that time frame. And normally Ignite is the biggest show that Microsoft has. It's obviously once a year typically. The last year's show was supposed to be actually in September in New Orleans, and my God, was I excited to go to New Orleans last year. But what they found when everything went virtual, all the work from home, lockdown stuff happened last year, Microsoft, like Apple, Google, everyone else, had to do virtual events. And what they discovered doing Build, which is their developer-oriented show back in probably May or April or May, whatever it was that it's hard to do more than just a couple of days, because Microsoft is trying to accommodate people all around the globe. They want to have the same sessions repeat over and over again so they can be in different time zones. So if you live in Europe or Asia, you can tune in live, see the same people giving the same speech, interact with them live, ask questions, that kind of thing, not just watch a video, right? And so what they decided to do for Ignite, which is a bigger show and usually lasts for a longer period of time, was split it into half. So they do a couple of days in whenever October, November, I don't remember, and then the second half this past week. And so honestly, I think they did a great job, really well done. But it's Microsoft Ignite. And for people that don't know the Microsoft stuff, it's a IT pro focused show. There's a little bit of developer stuff, but it's not really consumer technology. It's not for individuals per se. So there wasn't a lot of, like Windows news or, stuff for end users necessarily, but they talked up some HoloLens and mixed reality advances, which I thought were really interesting. There was a little bit of Windows news, but they're saving Windows for later, probably for Build, because like I said, there's a big version coming down the pike. I'm trying to think if there's anything. What would people want to know about? Some of the announcements like updates to Edge or Microsoft Office or Outlook in particular are the types of things they would have announced anyway. Like they're just updating these things over time, but Ignite was happening this week. So they're like, well, here's what's going on there. I guess the big thing is probably that mixed reality thing. And it was kind of a fun demo. They had it in the keynote. A little goofy. It was like the guy standing in the aquarium, giving a speech to virtual attendees. But the idea there is they're trying to, look, they know everything's not going back to the way it was, right? So how do you handle like this hybrid workplace of the future? You and I are doing this, video thing like we always do, but people who are, who normally meet with other people in a meeting room are getting tired of this. They want to go back and be able to meet people in person, but it won't always be possible. Is that what you're feeling?
You think people are at this point, because this was always the dream that people wanted, right? The fact that they could work from home and never see anybody.
It depends on who you talk to, right? So some people, I think, are well designed to do that, and some people aren't. And I bet for the people who are dreaming, like one of my best friends wrote me the other day, and he's like, "Hey, great news! My office just came back, and we're closing a building, and I don't have to go. I'm literally going to work from home 100% of the time." And I'm like, "That's fantastic," And he's been dying for this moment.
Yeah.
I think for some other people, they thought they were going to like it, and then somewhere around June or July, they were like, "Oh my God, I got to get out of here." Some people want to go back. I think there's a hybrid thing. I think some people will go back. Some people will go back sometimes and stay home sometimes. There's going to be a mix and match kind of thing. But the problem, like there is and I've experienced this. I mean, I record podcasts all the time. I do lots of virtual meetings, but it's fatiguing. And I look, Microsoft's AR mixed reality stuff is not to the point where it's super easy. It's not like putting on a little pair of glasses. Yeah, it's a big helmet thing. It's a little, it's a little much. But the dream here is they're going to hit some middle ground between you're there and you're not there.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be there, but because of the spatial capabilities of these systems, you're going to feel like you're in a space with other people, and it's a future leaning thing. It's not like it's coming out Tuesday, but it is an interesting idea. And it speaks to, I think, the future of how people are going to interact, not just at work, but in other, circumstances. I mean, I always think back, like when we weren't technically dating at the time, but when I moved to Albuquerque when I was a young man and was dating the woman I later married. And, we were apart for a year. We would send postcards and letters, and we would call each other sometimes on like Sunday nights, because back then that's when it was inexpensive to do that.
Because you were in different area codes.
Yeah. Different time zones. Right.
Yeah.
very expensive, you know? So as you move forward in time and technology improves, obviously like we were talking about FaceTime, kids, you know, they're on their phones, they're interacting, they're doing this stuff. It's a completely different scenario. But I mean, how exciting is it to kind of flash forward where, you know, you are separated from someone you love or someone you care about or whatever it is, but you can be in this virtual environment with them.
And it's normal.
You know, stepping around them and seeing them from different angles and stuff. And, you know, yeah, it's cartoony looking maybe today, but you know, it's going to improve. And it's an interesting idea. I mean, it's very Isaac Asimov. It's got kind of that, we robot finally, novels, I think.
I said this in I'll say it in a stoned state. And the people around me thought it was pretty.
Where all genius comes from.
Yeah, but the people around me.
Down. I'm about to say something awesome.
I thought it's a stupid thought, but the people around me thought it was actually. They're like, yeah, you're right. It's interesting. Like the '90s were late stage 1950s culture still being there, right? Like the Al Bundys. The Al Bundys, great example. Late stage 1950s Americana. Like this is the end of that. We have now finally, we have hit the Isaac Asimov, early 20th century concept on futurism. We're in that where everybody, virtually everybody's doing video chats. I mean, it finally happened.
My God. And everyone's, I've been watching all these kind of virtual travel things lately. And there's all these kind of YouTubers who are young people. They're out in the world. And I
love the traveling videos.
They do their highly unprofessional, video things that they do or whatever.
By the way, I just got a message, Bob, by Bob in our chat. He said, "Don't F with Al Bundy. I'll cut you."
Oh, no. Oh, no. If any, please. One of the greatest delights as a man, especially, I suppose, is go to YouTube and watch like Al Bundy's greatest hits or
Jess and I did that for like 3 weeks straight.
Oh, it's brilliant. Yeah. It's just, that show is incredible. Yeah, it's like the 90s version of the Dick Van Dyke Show.
It really is.
But again, slightly edgier. Still
50s culture, 50s Americana.
Oh, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, that's exactly what
I don't know what this is. This is a dystopian state we're living in now. We've gone into a Stephen King novel. We're no longer doing the Isaac Asimov future
it's
of
like
the world.
George Orwell, Stephen King, and
The Stand actually happened.
Max Brooks. Yeah.
We're living in The Stand. That is my favorite Stephen King novel, by the way.
I am. So since you brought it up, I mean, not last year during the pandemic, but the year before, I've been worried a lot in the recent years about attention span and, the way the internet has changed our ability to consume content. And I went back and reread The Lord of the Rings and The Stand because these were great books.
How difficult
read many
was
times. I got no problem at all. I loved it. And we just watched this, I guess it was a CBS All Access version of The Stand that came out late last year through fairly recently. And we enjoyed it. And there are lots of things to complain about. But my wife actually came up with the idea we should try to find the miniseries version they did in the 90s with Rob Lowe. And
it was the ABC one, right?
Yep. And we watched that on YouTube. It's the whole thing's on there for some reason.
What was it? 6-part series?
That one was a 3 or 4 part series.
I remember
exactly.
I remember I was a kid, Paul, and I saw the coming attraction. So that's what made me. I actually saw the show first, the miniseries, and then I rented the book from the library.
Yeah, because it just expands on everything. So honestly, both of them had their strengths. I would say Rob Lowe and the guy that played, I think it was Tom Cullen, amazing. And those two guys were the highlight of that. But the screenplay for that was written by Stephen King. It's a little bit closer to the book. Obviously, you don't get the modern effects and all that stuff. They both had their strengths, but it caused me to go back. I'm actually rereading it again, so it's only been like 2 years. I'm not reading it like word for word. So what I became interested in was like these secondary characters that either don't appear in one version or only appear a little bit. And so anyway, I'm like literally 50% of the way through it now, but now I have no idea what we were talking about or why. But
you were talking about your attention span.
There you go. So
there you go.
Can see you can see how that
dangers
works.
Of the internet.
The Stand is an incredible story.
It absolutely is. I forgot my main point too. So what does that say right now?
I
forgot my entire point with this. We were talking about.
Well, you were saying we live in this dystopian stand world.
So no, but it's interesting because I love those. Actually, I did this on YouTube also, where I went through like all these old videos from 1930s on of what the home of the future will be like, right? And they revolve around baking, which is so interesting because at the time, remember, it was the person that kept the house and used all these things was the wife 99% of the time. We're looking at 1930s and 40s, 20s even. You know, I've seen some. I was reading this interesting article about like the things that a woman needs in her house in the future, and like, I'm like, how about me? But almost every single one of these ovens had like a setting, so it would be like, oh, you're cooking chicken today? Here you go. Put the chicken in, and like the oven is. Button. Yeah, but the oven is actually putting the ingredients and marinating and doing everything. Yeah. I'm like, we're there, dude. We're there. It finally happened.
Sure.
All these devices.
The only thing we don't have is flying cars, you know. But even that's probably going to happen now.
I mean, we're at the electric car of the future is now. The next 5 years, by 2030, drones. It's happening. You know, right now I'm in a weird bubble because this will probably be, it could be my last combustion engine lease that I'm doing.
Oh
for
yeah,
Jess.
for sure.
I'll always listen. I'll have my Mustang, I'll have my sports car, and I'll do it. But for her car, you know, we experiment, we try new things. Right now, her Volvo's great. The lease is ending, so where do we go after this? Do we get an electric?
Do it, but you know, a lot of these classic cars ran on leaded gas, right? And so if you want to have a car like that today, you have to put something in the gas, right? To make that okay. And we're gonna. I mean, I don't know how we're gonna get from fossil fuel to electric and be able to use those old cars, you know, 50 years down the line. But there are going to be conversions, you know. In fact, you're probably already seeing that. People have converted classic cars so they run. Well, they already do stuff like this, right? You take like a classic car from the past and put a modern engine in it.
That's my buddy just did that. He has a 72 Mustang. Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, just
but it probably came with like the crappiest engine imaginable.
Whatever it was.
Then, you know, but it was
the
terrible.
Thing is, Paul, you got to see this. The thing, he calls it the Nighthawk. Black everywhere. Nice. The whole thing is black rims, but glossy. I mean, the whole thing, it's stunning. And he has LED lights in the front, so it's a little modernized. The rear lights are LED. And he dropped a brand new Ford 5.0 engine in there. And the transmission, it's a brand new car. Brand new car.
Every time I hear a story like this, I had an uncle who was a mechanic, and he was shot down in Vietnam at least 3 times and repaired the helicopter and saved people's lives by getting it in the air again and getting out of there like 3 times, at least maybe 3 or 4 times. But he was so familiar. He was a Volvo guy. So he was so familiar with Volvo engines that he used to put Volvo engines in boats because he could service them.
Listen,
and so like one of the craziest things I ever saw was he had a boat that had 2 Volvo engines in it, both of them running a separate, like a propeller or whatever. I don't really know boats, but it's like this total Frankenstein thing, but you know, it would like lift out of the water, you know, when you took off. But I always envy people who have that kind of skill.
We're finally here with electric cars. Listen, I love it. We'll talk about this on the post show. We'll do like 10 minutes of this, but there is a major resistance from people to buy an electric vehicle, right?
Oh, of course.
Tons.
Yeah, of course there is.
Tons. And by the way, a lot of it is justified. I agree with a lot of it, but I also think it's really freaking cool. Have you driven a Tesla? Have you driven one? Okay.
Yeah, I have.
The fact that it's not, it doesn't feel like you're driving a car like a normal car. It feels there's a little bit of
cars don't usually have G-forces associated with
this
them.
Thing is like this immediately.
I don't know. I don't care how fast you think your car is, but like a Tesla, and I'm sure all they knew, like the new Mustang E or whatever, that you hit the pedal and the thing is going 60 miles an hour in like 2.5 seconds.
Instant power.
And it's hard to explain how fast you get slammed back against the chair, but it's alarming. Like when you're not used to it, you're like, holy crap.
It's also a lot of the stuff that you rely on, like engine noise to determine, the transmission and shifting. I mean, even though my car is an automatic now, it's a 10-speed, right? It's almost impossible to get these in manual now. But I still think like it's a manual car. I listen to the rev. You really don't have that on a Tesla. No. So
well, even on gas vehicles, like one of the last innovations on gasoline-powered vehicles probably is that continuously variable transmission thing.
Yeah.
And depending on the implementation,
CVT.
It can feel really rubbery and weird, but it's not 1, 2, 3, you're not, going through gears. It's they kind of slide, it's like a sliding scale kind of a thing. And everything's changing. I mean,
everything is changing, man. Everything is changing. All right, let's wrap it up for today. We'll do a quick bonus show. Listen, guys, if you enjoy the show, go support us. Patreon.com/whatthetech. You could listen to or watch our bonus shows there. For all things Paul, go to therot.com. I'm going on Friday to get the vaccine. So another one step closer. You know why? I'll explain on the post show why I'm doing it. I want to get into this.
Why?
Why
I'm
I'm getting
why you have to explain this.
Because you know what? Okay. Because I'm also conflicted on it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm really transparent about what I think. Unfortunately for myself, sometimes I put my foot in my mouth, but I'm pretty transparent. I've been sitting on that line. Do I get it? Do I not get it? When do I get it? If I get it. So I finally decided, listen, it was a sign to get it. The flat earthers told me. And of course, the mole men told me to go get it. So now I'm going to obviously listen to my TikTok and get the shot. So I'll talk about it on the post show. How it happened and what happened. But I also went to the Garden to watch the Rangers play against your Boston Bruins, which we got our ass kicked on Sunday. Yeah. So I want to talk to you about that. All this and a lot more on the bonus show. Head on over to patreon.com/whatthetech. Follow us everywhere podcasts are available. For all things Paul, go to therot.com. He does a wonderful show with a young up-and-coming broadcaster named Leah Laporte every Wednesday with Mary Jo Foley, also on twit.tv. You can watch Windows Weekly there and also subscribe to it. And, of course, you do a podcast with Brad every day, almost. That's it. That was my plug. Anything else, Paul?
No, I mean, I'm doing a couple of Ignite-related things. So one was Wednesday, and then Wednesday? Yeah. And then the other one, well, we're recording it tomorrow, but it won't come out until next Tuesday. But, yeah, it's been kind of a busy week. Busy week.
And it'll continue being busy for me and Paul. Until next week, guys. See you later.